Thanks, Mr Deputy President. The Balfour Correspondent is a beautiful book that takes us back into a time when Balfour was a busy mining town in the early 1900s. I have a copy of the book here if anyone would like to have a look at it. Balfour is located in northwest Tasmania within the Tarkine. It is 20 kilometres inland from Tema, as formerly known as Whales Head, south of the Arthur River and north of the Pieman River. Alluvial tin is thought to have been discovered there in 1875 and mined as early as 1883. However, it was the discovery of a copper deposit, which mining began in 1908, that drove the establishment of the township of Balfour. The copper mining activity intensified between 1908 and 1912, and Balfour had a population peaking at around 900 residents during this copper boom time. The boom time began to stagnate in 1913 and Balfour was all but abandoned by 1924. The Balfour Correspondent is a book through which we get a sense of what life was like by way of a conversation extending across time by way of 14-year-old Sylvia MacArthur's original letters and modern-day responses of author James Dryburgh. Sylvia was born in Zeehan on the 16th of October 1897. Her mother died when she was just 7 years old. Sylvia and her family moved to Balfour in late 1911. Not unlike girls of today, Sylvia wanted to share her experiences. In January 2012, Sylvia started writing letters to Launceston's Weekly Courier's Young Folks page. She wrote of the exciting 2-week journey that took her family from Zeehan to relocate to Balfour in 1911 when her father got a job at the Reward mine. She wrote of social events such as a concert given to raise funds for a school library and how despite the dismal weather it was voted the best yet. In contrast, she wrote the Empire Day celebrations disappointing, unlike those of Zeehan, which she described as a bonny place. It's worth noting that Zeehan was a much larger and bustling town than it is now at that time. Zeehan's population peaked at approximately 10,000 residents in about 1910 and boasted over 20 hotels. Sylvia was an avid reader who also wrote of the antics of her brothers and how tired her father was from working 12-hour days. Her sense of isolation and loneliness can be felt at times and a longing to go to school. Today's communications are of course instant and young women and girls now use social media to express themselves. Sylvia's letters took days to make their way to Launceston via pack horse and ship. Nevertheless, there's something very relevant about this story and a reminder that girls' voices are important and we need to listen to them. This is timely as we celebrated International Day of the Girl Child, a United Nations initiative since 2012 on October 11. The voices of young people, particularly the voices of young women and young people from isolated areas, are often not heard. Sylvia was all of these, and thankfully her voice has been heard and recorded. These letters had long been forgotten and largely ignored, but they provide a valuable account of daily life in the township of Balfour and a history of the area we know as the Tarkine. Tragically, Sylvia died in 1912 at the age of 15. Presumably when an outbreak of typhoid consumed the town as a result of contaminated drinking water, where the town sewage also entered the drinking water supply. Not long after her death, mining all but ceased, and there is not much remaining now of the once bustling mining town. It has been quickly reclaimed by the forest and only a few dwellings now remain. The book also contains a number of photos that show people and the township of Balfour during this time, including photos of Sylvia and her family. It is actually interesting that Sylvia was just like girls of today, sharing what she did day to day and talking about social events that were a bit boring. She just did it in a different way. This book contains such wonderful insight into the life of a young girl with great sensitivity, as the book is steeped in tragedy. The tragedy of disease, untimely death, isolation, both geographic and social, loneliness, suicide and harsh living conditions. When reading the book, it spans 2 centuries. I was drawn to consider changes to our communications, transport and our respect for and management of the natural environment. Whilst much has changed, some things are eerily similar. Have we learned from the past? Perhaps we have, perhaps we haven't. This book provides us with a glimpse into our past and brings us skillfully into the present. I'll conclude from some of the words of the author, James Dryburgh. James said at the book launch in Burnie last week, it was important to see where we came from to think more clearly about where we are going. And from the book, toward the end, he wrote, "Language is a ceremony of belief. Its words and images compel us to believe in its creations. They are materials that construct a bridge across the gulf that separates us. Visiting your world was a reminder that we can choose languages of destruction that divide and isolate, or languages that build narratives worthy of sharing and living. Words sculpt the world, the stories we choose to live, the meanings we adopt, and the words we leave behind. Our bequest to the aftertime. The right ones can steer and sustain you. Thank you, Sylvia, for yours." Mr Deputy President, I say thank you to James Dryburgh for this most sensitive and engaging sharing of the history of one of Tasmania's most beautiful places.
The Honourable Acting... No, the real deal.